Before the shell of structure and the heart of intuition could ever actually see each other, they could hear each other. Music, it turns out, was their first shared language. It's kind of the only place where the rigid mathematical rule and that chaotic, wild feeling aren't at war. Instead, they're in a dance. This is the story of how that dance changed, from a strict waltz to a messy mosh pit, and then to a perfectly synced algorithm. It's the story of how the shell learned to feel just by listening.
You've heard that old riddle, right? Well, at the turn of the 21st century, we got to see it play out for real right in the music industry. The unmovable object? That was the industry itself, this massive fortress built on physical things, on CDs. And the unstoppable force? Oh, that was every single one of us with an internet connection. So let's really dig into what that looked like. On one side, you had the old shell, the compact disc. It was this perfect, shiny, rigid container, and the industry had total control over it. On the other side, total chaos. The MP3 file. It was weightless, you could share it infinitely, and it was completely controlled by the user. This is the story of how that rigid shell wasn't just cracked, it was basically vaporized by the digital heart. All right, Section 1, the shell shatters. See, for decades, the industry's power was absolute. And you know why? Because they controlled the physical thing, the CD, the tape, the record. But that whole fortress of plastic, it was built on a foundation that was just about to turn to sand.
And then came Napster. Now, it's so important to get this. Napster wasn't just some program you downloaded. It was a revolution in thinking. It took music, which the industry had carefully defined as a product to be sold, and it turned it back into pure information. And information, well, it wants to be free. It could now move at the speed of light, and just like that, the old gatekeepers were totally bypassed.
And this just shows you how fast that old world fell apart. It was breathtaking. Sure, the record labels won their big lawsuit against Napster in 2001, but it didn't really matter. The idea was out there, the genie was out of the bottle, and there was no putting it back. It actually took a new kind of shell, Apple's iTunes Store, to bring some sort of order to the chaos, but make no mistake, the rules of the game had been changed forever.
Okay, so, Section 2. The user takes control. Because once that old container was completely broken, the whole power dynamic just flipped. 180 degrees. The listener, the heart, was suddenly in the driver's seat, and we started building new containers of our own.
99 cents. It seems so simple, so small, right? But that single price tag was an absolute nuclear bomb. It totally unbundled the album. No more having to buy 12 songs just to get the one or two that you actually loved. The era of the album as the dominant format? Yeah, that was over.
What we're looking at here is a massive, monumental transfer of power. For the very first time in history, anyone, anywhere, had access to a library of music that made every record store in the world look tiny. And we had the tools to become our own curators. The playlist, that became the new personal shelf. We made custom collections for our workouts, our commutes, our heartbreaks. The industry wasn't in charge of the experience anymore. We were.
So, that brings us to Section 3, the shell starts listening. But here's the thing about having everything. Where do you even begin? It's the classic paradox of choice. We needed a new kind of shell, not one to lock things up, but one that could act as our guide through this infinite musical universe.
This is the moment the shell gets smart, really smart. Companies like Spotify, they had this big realization. Trying to fight against user choice was like trying to fight the ocean. It was a losing battle, so the only way to win was to stop fighting and start learning. The new shell became a student of the heart, and its classroom was all of our data. And that, right there, is the algorithm. It's the engine that makes the whole network aware of you. It's not about forcing rules on you anymore. It's about finding the patterns in your choices. It learns the dance of your personal taste so intimately that it can actually anticipate your next move, serving you the perfect song before you even realize you wanted to hear it. Which leads to Section 4, inside the algorithmic brain. Okay, but how does it actually do that? How can this new digital shell possibly listen to millions of different hearts all at the same time? Well, it turns out it's this fascinating combination of being a sociologist and a music scientist. So you can think of the algorithm as having two ears. With its first ear, it listens to everybody else. That's what we call collaborative filtering. It basically finds your musical twins out there in the world and says, hey, people who like what you like also seem to like this. With its other ear, it listens to the music itself, the raw data.
It breaks songs down to their absolute core, the tempo, the key, the energy, to find other songs that share the same sonnet DNA. But the real magic, the secret sauce, happens when it combines those two giant streams of data with the most important one of all, yours. Every single time you play a song, you skip a song, you save a song to a playlist, you're teaching the algorithm. You are its professor. You are giving it the feedback it needs to build an incredibly precise, predictive model of your unique musical soul.
And this is where it gets really wild. This whole artificial system is basically a mirror of our own biology. I mean, your brain is a prediction machine. You get that little hit of dopamine, that little thrill when a song correctly resolves a pattern or gives you a pleasant surprise. The algorithm, it's literally an external artificial version of that exact process. It's so good because it's hacking our own brain's reward system, giving us that perfect mix of comfortable and new to keep that reward loop going, and to keep us listening.
So where does all this leave us? Section 5. A new dance begins. What's clear is that this isn't a battle anymore. That old dynamic, that push and pull of control and rebellion, has been totally replaced by a new kind of dance, one where the partners are deeply, symbiotically, technologically connected.
I think this quote just captures the entire journey perfectly. I mean, think about it. The shell started as a rulebook. Then it became a physical package, a piece of plastic. Then it became a tool for us to hack and break. But then it evolved into a listener. And now, finally, it's a partner in our own dance of discovery.
So if the shell has learned to listen this well, what in the world happens when it learns to speak? The shell fought so hard to contain the heart's new rhythm, but the heart always broke the form. And with every broken rule, a new shell was born, just to hold that new chaos. The collective mind was listening and it was learning. It was becoming aware of the heart's pulse, absorbing the dance into its own code, not even knowing that this shared rhythm was the very bridge that would one day unite them.